All right, so let's start with a definition of reaction mechanism. So how is reaction mechanism defined? So a reaction mechanism is a formalized description of how a reaction takes place. So essentially, it talks about how we get from reactants to products. So ano ba yung pinagdadaanan? Ano ba yung mga steps that chemical species undergo during a reaction for them to form the final product. And when it comes to organic chemistry, the focus is actually on the connectivity of the atom. So with that, ang ibig sabihin po natin dyan ay structures. So we're dealing with structures. And then secondly, and I think like when it comes to organic chemistry, we actually draw a mechanism and represent the movement of electrons using arrows. So movement of electrons. Bakit ba tayo mag-focus sa electrons? Ano ba ang fundamental component of matter that's involved in bonding? So di ba po electron? So yan ang ating focus ngayon, more particularly valence electron. So dun sa mga estudyante natin, ngayon alam niyo na kung ano yung unang nating prerequisite. It's actually an understanding of electrons and how they are actually used to form bonds, and and how they are actually crucial in the connectivity of the atoms in a particular structure. Okay, so sabi ko nga, all of our examples are actually going to be, all of the discussions for today will be predicated around this type of reactions. It's a polar reaction of an alkene. So essentially, you are adding hydrobromic acid to ethylene, so or to ethene to form a product that is called bromoethane. So JP, can you guys see my cursor? And I'm using the pointer.
Yep.
Okay. Opo. So ito, what's happening is this is ethene. This is a C2 alkene. So essentially, since dalawa lang yung carbon niya, nandun yung carbon-carbon double bond. It reacts with hydrobromic acid, and in the process, it actually forms bromoethane. So okay, hindi ko muna i-discuss paano ba yung pagdraw ng mechanisms yan. But this is typically how a trained chemist will talk about this reaction, this organic transformation in the language of reaction mechanism. So ako po, I will talk in my language. So for example, okay, so in this particular reaction, this is how it starts. The pi bond of your ethylene will nucleophilically attack the proton or the hydrogen in hydrobromic acid. And in the process, the bond between hydrogen and bromine will actually break. So mapuputol yan. And then what happens after that is, once the hydrobromic acid bond is actually broken, you will actually end up having that hydrogen forming a bond with carbon. And then, yung isa naman pong carbon, doon sa ating carbon-carbon double bond sa reactant, it forms a carbocation. And that carbocation is actually electron deficient. So it will find a way to complete its octet. And so what happens is, since the first step liberates a free bromide ion, that bromide ion will actually attack that electrophilic center, and then ultimately forming your product, which is bromoethane. So ganun po ang lengguwahe doon, no? Ang dami yung narinig na mga technical terms. O baka po naguluhan na kayo, ano ba yung mga pinagsasasabi ni Sir Jeff? So yan po yung gusto kong ituro sa inyo. So kapag po kasi nagbasa kayo ng libro, lalo pa naman ng mga textbooks na that's written in a different language, medyo ang hirap po kasi talaga nitong i-digest kasi there's a lot of technicalities around this topic. So when you talk about organic reaction mechanisms, kailangan nyo gamitin essentially yung vernacular na kaparehas ng ginamit ko. Paano po kung nagsisimula pa lang kayo? Paano nyo ba talaga to approach? So dito na po papasok yung mga prerequisites na binabanggit ko sa inyo. So sabi, gaya na pinakita kanina ni Professor Dindy, there's a number of things that you actually need to learn or to at least have some fairly decent understanding of, for you to understand, like the topics that she mentioned earlier. But then this time around, like when it comes to organic reaction mechanisms, dalawa po yung most essential. The first of which is an appreciation of organic structures or chemical structures in general. So when we say structures, we're talking about Lewis structures and Lewis symbols. So dapat po, marunong kayo magsulat ng tamang Lewis structures and Lewis symbols kasi pag mali po ang inyong isinusulat or dinadraw na Lewis structure representation ng inyong compound, and then automatically po mali na ang inyong reaction mechanism. Secondly is a very strong grasp of octet rule. So since we're dealing with organic chemistry and we're actually dealing with atoms or elements that typically require an octet. So you have carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and then your halogens. So typically, okay lang na basta malakas or malalim yung pagkakaintindi nyo ng octet rule. That is very important. Kasi sabi niya kanina sa definition, kailangan ang ating understanding ng movement ng electrons, as they are used to form or break bonds, dapat yun po ay solid. Ang pangalawa is bond polarity. So again, yung polarity naman, doon nyo rin siya kukunin sa appreciation of Lewis structures, but then you're just combining it with the concept of electronegativity. So when is a compound polar or not? Kasi yung polarity po na yan, that will actually dictate the types of reactions or the reaction mechanism that those chemical species will undergo during a reaction. So yan po. So ito po, I would like to highlight at the high school level ang ating pong mga guro. Kapag po naturuan nyo ng maayos sa Lewis structures, octet rules, bond polarity, dipole moments, electronegativity ang ating mga estudyante, you're actually preparing them well for a college level learning of organic chemistry, more particularly reaction mechanism. So yun po. So ito po, gusto ko lang din pong banggitin sa inyo that we actually have, I think this is a 2.5 hour lecture on how, or web tutorial on how to actually draw Lewis structure. So like in this particular lecture, we talked about Lewis symbols for organic and inorganic compounds. We talked about covalent bonding, polarity, formal charges, and even exceptions to the octet rule. So kung ang mga estudyante po natin at ating mga guro ay kailangan ng refresher or kung gusto po ninyo ng Tagalog-English discussion of that na in a way that's simplified, ito po, we recommend that you watch this. This is actually uploaded on our YouTube channel. So, okay.